Always ready. Try to be ready. Hare Krishna. Are we on? We on. Okay. So, hello. Hello, everyone. Thank you for. Hope you're here with me. Hope you're not shopping like everyone else. We're gonna read on this auspicious day. Actually, it's really auspicious because we're gonna finish third canto. So it's really great milestone in our reading. So we really kind of celebrate any milestone, any chapter, or any, especially in the canto when we read. I know when we were reading at the Govardhan Hill, there was like kind of a big cheers after successfully finishing the yagya and with all the benefits that the yagya brings of reading and immersed in attending reading and also discussion of the scripture. So yeah, let's go in to actually finish it. This is the last chapter of this canto, and the chapter is called Activities of Kapila. We're somewhere towards the end, 38, right? No, can't be 38 verses. Somewhere there. But before that, we recite Mahima Stotra glorification verses. Sarva Shastra Piyusha, Sarva Vedaika Satvala, Sarva Siddhantna Ratnadya, Sarva Lokaika Drikprada, Sarva Bhagavata Prana, Srimad Bhagavata Prano, Prabhu Kalidvantoditaditya, Shri Krishna Parivartitam, Paramananda Patnaya, Prema Vakshaksharayate, Sarvanda Sarvasivyaya, Shri Krishna Namostu Me, Stute, Asadu Saduta, Dain, Hatini Chochataraka, Hanamuncha Kadachinman, Premna Hrit Kantayos Puram. Maybe I skipped one. Translation. A nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all of the worlds. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun reason in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Sri Krishna. I bow down to you, who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Sri Krishna himself. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me, always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Sri Krishna, welcome again. Those who join now, we are reading Canto 3, Chapter 33, Activities of Kapila. And these are the last few verses in this canto. And we also, just yesterday, we went through the last final instructions of Lord Kapila Dev to Mother Huti before he left. There was Sage Maitreya narrating that. We heard Devahuti's prayers at the beginning of that chapter. They were short and sweet and short and succinct, to the point. And now we are in the middle of a section where it's described how Devahuti achieved perfection, which started, at the beginning we were hearing the place, or the palace of Kardama Muni, and then how she was lamenting for her son, despite of all she had. And and then we heard of her practice, what she did, what kind of practice she had, whatever she heard from Kapila Dev. And we heard about achievement, and now we're hearing these verses we're reading now. It's about her external disposition. So text 28 we left off yesterday. Translation. Her body was being taken care of by the spiritual damsels created by her husband, Kardama, and since she had no mental anxiety at that time, her body did not become thin. She appeared just like a fire surrounded by smoke. Purport. Because she was always in transcendental bliss, the thought of the personality of Godhead was always carefully fixed in her mind. She did not become thin, for she was taken care of by the celestial maidservants created by her husband. It is said, according to the Ayurvedic medical science, that if one is free from anxieties, he generally becomes fat. Devahuti, being situated in Krishna consciousness, had no mental anxieties, and therefore her body did not become thin. It is customary in the renounced order of life that one should not take any service from a servant or maid, but Devahuti was being served by the celestial maidservants. This may appear to be against the spiritual concept of life, but just as fire is still beautiful even when surrounded by smoke, she looked completely pure, although it seemed that she was living in a luxurious way. Text 29. Because she was always absorbed in the thought of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, she was not aware that her hair was sometimes loosened or her garments were disarrayed. Purport by Srila Prabhupada and all the other purports. In this verse, the word Daiva Guptam, protected by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is very significant. Once one surrenders unto the service of the Supreme Lord, the Lord takes charge of the maintenance of the devotee's body, and there is no need of anxiety for its protection. It is said in the second chapter, second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam that a fully surrendered soul has no anxiety about the maintenance of his body. The Supreme Lord takes care of the maintenance of innumerable species of bodies. Therefore, one who fully engages in his service will not go unprotected by the Supreme Lord. Devahuti was naturally unmindful of the protection of her body, which was being taken care of by the Supreme Person. Now we hear how she attained perfection from verse 30 on. Translation. My dear Vidura, that's Maitreya speaking, I think. Yeah. My dear Vidura, by following the principles instructed by Kapila, Devahuti soon became liberated from material bondage, and she achieved the Supreme Personality of Godhead as Supersoul without difficulty. Purport. 3 words have been used in this connection to describe the achievement of Devahuti: Atmanam, Brahma Nirvanam, and Bhagavantam. These refer to the gradual process of discovery of the Absolute Truth, mentioned herein as the Bhagavantam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead resides in various Vaikuntha planets. Nirvana means to extinguish the pangs of material existence. When one is able to enter into the spiritual kingdom or into spiritual realization, one is automatically freed from material pangs. That is called Brahma Nirvana. According to Vedic scripture, Nirvana means cessation of the materialistic way of life. Atmanam means realization of the Supersoul within the heart. Ultimately, the highest perfection is a realization of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is to be understood that Devahuti entered the planet which is called Kapila Vaikuntha. There are innumerable Vaikuntha planets predominated by the expansions of Vishnu. All the Vaikuntha planets are known by a particular name of Vishnu. As we understand from Brahma Samhita, Advaitam, Achyutam, Anadim, Anantarupam. Ananta means innumerable. The Lord has innumerable expansions of His transcendental form, and according to the different positions of the symbolical representations in His 4 hands, He is known as Narayana, Pradyumna, Aniruddha, Vasudeva, etc. There is also a Vaikuntha planet known as Kapila Vaikuntha, to which Devahuti was promoted to meet Kapila and reside there eternally, enjoying the company of her transcendental son. Text 31. The palace where Devahuti achieved her perfection, my dear Vidura, is understood to be the most sacred spot. It is known all over the three worlds as Siddha Pada. 32. Siddha Pada, place of perfection, right? 32. Dear Vidura, the material elements of her body have melted into water and are now a flowing river, which is the most sacred of all rivers. Anyone who bathes in that river also attains perfection, and therefore all persons who desire perfection go bathe there. Text 33. So now we switch to Kapila. Kapila is being described for the last one more time. My dear Vidura, the great sage Kapila, the personality of Godhead, left his father's hermitage with the permission of his mother and went towards the northeast. 34. While he was passing in the northern direction, all the celestial denizens known as Charanas and Gandharvas, as well as the Munis and the damsels of the heavenly planets, prayed and offered him all respects. The ocean offered him oblations and a place of residence. Purport. It is understood that Kapila Muni first went towards the Himalayas and traced the course of the river Ganges, and he again came to the delta of the Ganges at the sea now known as the Bay of Bengal. The ocean gave him residence at a place still known as Ganga Sagar, where the river Ganges meets the sea. That place is called Ganga Sagar Tirtha, and even today people gather there to offer respects to Kapiladev, the original author of the Sankhya system of philosophy. Unfortunately, the Sankhya system has been misrepresented by an impostor who is also named Kapila, but that other system of philosophy does not tally with anything described in the Sankhya of Kapila in the Srimad Bhagavatam. 35. Even now, Kapila Muni is staying there in trance for the deliverance of the conditioned souls in the three worlds, and all the acharyas, or great teachers of the system of Sankhya philosophy, are worshipping him. 36. My dear son, since you have inquired from me, I have answered. O sinless one, the descriptions of Kapiladev and his mother and their activities are the purest of all pure discourses. And 37. This is called Phala Shruti at the end. What kind of a fruit someone gets when hears or narrates previous verses. The description of the dealings of Kapiladev and his mother is very confidential, and anyone who hears or reads this narration becomes a devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is carried by Garuda, and he thereafter enters into the abode of the Supreme Lord to engage in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Purport. The narration of Kapiladev and his mother, Devahuti, is so perfect and transcendental that even if one only hears or reads this description, he achieves the highest perfectional goal of life, for he engages in the loving service of the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There is no doubt that Devahuti, who had the Supreme Lord as her son and who followed the instructions of Kapiladev so nicely, attained the highest perfection of human life. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the third canto, 33rd chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Activities of Kapila, and that ends the third canto. Haribol, Haribol. So now we have to get another book. We're gonna start fourth canto because we have time, and if you're still staying, you can. It's just the next one. You see where the gap is, and I'll also have to get it here. Da-da-da-da. Where is it? So we're starting Canto 4. canto is entitled Creation of the Fourth Order. So we're gonna hear the different family trees, description of that from the start. Because chapter first it's entitled genealogical. I don't know if I said it right. Genealogical table of the daughters of Manu. So we're gonna hear that, and we're gonna go straight in and with text 1, chapter 1, canto 4. Sri Maitreya said, Swayambhuva Manu begot 3 daughters in his wife Shatarupa, and their names were Akuti, Devahuti, and Prasuti. So now we see where Devahuti is coming from. Purport. First of all, let us offer our respectful obeisances unto our spiritual master, Om Vishnupad Shri Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada, by whose order I am engaged in this Herculean task of writing commentary on the Srimad Bhagavatam as the Bhaktivedanta purports. It's Prabhupada now speaking. By his grace, we have finished 3 cantos already, and we are just trying to begin the 4th canto. By his divine grace, let us offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Chaitanya, who began this Krishna consciousness movement of Bhagavad Dharma 500 years ago. And through his grace, let us offer our obeisances to the 6 Goswamis. And then let us offer our obeisances to Radha and Krishna, the spiritual couple, who enjoy eternally in Vrindavan with their cowherd boys and damsels in Rajabhumi. Let us also offer our respectful obeisances to all the devotees and eternal servitors of the Supreme Lord. In this 4th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, there are 31 chapters, and all these chapters describe the secondary creation by Brahma and the Manus. The Supreme Lord himself does the real creation by agitating his material energy, and then, by his order, Brahma, the first living creature in the universe, attempts to create the different planetary systems and their inhabitants, expanding the population through his progeny, like Manu and other progenitors of living entities who work perpetually under the order of the Supreme Lord. In the 1st chapter of this 4th canto, there are descriptions of the 3 daughters of Swayambhuva Manu and their descendants. The next 6 chapters describe the sacrifice performed by King Daksha and how it was spoiled. Thereafter, the activities of Maharaj Dhruva are described in 5 chapters. Then, in 11 chapters, the activities of King Prithu are described, and the next 8 chapters are devoted to the activities of the Pracheta kings. As described in the 1st verse of this chapter, Swayambhuva Manu had 3 daughters named Akuti, Devahuti, and Prasuti. Of these 3 daughters, one daughter, Devahuti, has already been described, along with her husband Kardama Muni and her son Kapila Muni. In this chapter, the descendants of the first daughter, Akuti, will specifically be described. Swayambhuva Manu was the son of Brahma. Brahma had many other sons, but Manu's name is specifically mentioned first because he was a great devotee of the Lord. In this verse, there is also the word Cha, indicating that besides the 3 daughters mentioned, Swayambhuva Manu also had 2 sons. So we see many interesting chapters in this 4th canto, many interesting leelas described. Let's go to the verse 2. Starts with Akuti's description of Akuti's life. Akuti had 2 brothers, but in spite of her brothers, King Swayambhuva Manu handed her over to Prajapati Ruchi on the condition that the son born of her be returned to Manu as his son. This he did in consultation with his wife Shatarupa. Purport. Sometimes a sonless person offers his daughter to a husband on the condition that his grandson be returned to him to be adopted as his son and inherit his property. This is called Putrika Dharma, which means that by execution of religious rituals one gets a son, although one is sonless by one's own wife. But here we see extraordinary behavior in Manu, for in spite of his having 2 sons, he handed over his first daughter to Prajapati Ruchi on the condition that the son born of his daughter be returned to him as his son. Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur comments in this connection that King Manu knew that the Supreme Personality of Godhead would take birth in the womb of Akuti. Therefore, in spite of having 2 sons, he wanted the particular son born of Akuti because he was ambitious to have the Supreme Personality of Godhead appear as his son and grandson. Manu is the lawgiver of mankind, and since he personally executed the Putrika Dharma, we may accept that such a system may be adopted by mankind also. Thus, even though one has a son, if one wants to have a particular son from one's daughter, one may give one's daughter in charity on that condition. That is the opinion of Srila Jiva Goswami. Text 3. Ruchi, who was very powerful in his Brahminical qualifications and was appointed one of the progenitors of the living entities, begot 1 son and 1 daughter by his wife Akuti. Purport. The word Brahma Varchasvi is very significant. Ruchi was a Brahmana, and he executed the Brahminical duties very rigidly. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, the Brahminical qualifications are control of the senses, control of the mind, cleanliness within and without, development of spiritual and material knowledge, simplicity, truthfulness, faith in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, etc. There are many qualities which indicate a Brahminical personality, and it is understood that Ruchi followed all the Brahminical principles rigidly. Therefore, he is specifically mentioned as Brahma Varchasvi. One who is born of a Brahmana father but does not act as a Brahmana is called in Vedic language a Brahma Bandhu, and is calculated to be on the level of Shudras and women. Thus, in the Bhagavatam we find that Mahabharata was specifically compiled by Vyasadeva for Stri Shudra Brahma Bandhu. Stri means women, Shudra means lower class of civilized human society, and Brahma Bandhu means persons who are born in the families of Brahmanas but do not follow the rules and regulations carefully. All of these 3 classes are called less intelligent. They have no access to the study of the Vedas, which are specifically meant for persons who have acquired the Brahminical qualifications. This restriction is based not upon any sectarian distinction, but upon qualification. The Vedic literatures cannot be understood unless one has developed the Brahminical qualifications. It is regrettable, therefore, that persons who have no Brahminical qualifications and have never been trained under a bona fide spiritual master nevertheless comment on Vedic literatures like the Srimad Bhagavatam and other Puranas, for such persons cannot deliver their real message. Ruchi was considered a first-class Brahmana. Therefore, he is mentioned here as Brahma Varchasvi, one who had full prowess in Brahminical strength. Text 4. Of the 2 children born of Akuti, the male child was directly an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and his name was Yagya, which is another name of Lord Vishnu. The female child was a partial incarnation of Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, the eternal consort of Lord Vishnu. Purport. Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, is the eternal consort of Lord Vishnu. Here it is stated that both the Lord and Lakshmi, who are eternal consorts, appeared from Akuti simultaneously. Both the Lord and his consort are beyond this material creation, as confirmed by many authorities. Narayana Paro Vyaktat. Therefore, their eternal relationship cannot be changed, and Yagya, the boy born of Akuti, later married the goddess of fortune. 5. Swayambhuva Manu very gladly brought home the beautiful boy named Yagya, and Ruchi, his son-in-law, kept with him the daughter Dakshina. Dakshina. Purport. Swayambhuva Manu was very glad to see that his daughter Akuti had been given birth to both a boy and girl. He was afraid that he would take one son, and that because of this his son-in-law Ruchi might be sorry. Thus when he heard that a daughter was born along with a boy, he was very glad. Ruchi, according to his promise, returned his male child to Swambhuva Manu and decided to keep the daughter, whose name was Dakshina. One of Lord Vishnu's names is Yagya because he is the master of the Vedas. The name Yagya comes from Yajusham Patihi, which means Lord of all sacrifices. In the Yajur Veda, there are different ritualistic prescriptions for performing yagyas, and the beneficiary of all such yagyas is the Supreme Lord Vishnu. Therefore, it is stated in Bhagavad Gita, Yagnartat Karmanaha. One should act, but one should perform one's prescribed duties only for the sake of Yagya or Vishnu. If one does not act for the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or if one does not perform devotional service, then there will be reactions to all one's activities. It does not matter if the reaction is good or bad. If our activities are not dovetailed with the desire of the Supreme Lord, or if we not act in Krishna consciousness, then we shall be responsible for the results of all our activities. That is called yagya, karma. There is always a reaction to every kind of action, but if actions are performed for yagya, there is no reaction. So then is akarma. Thus, if one acts for yagya or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one is not entangled in the material condition, for it is mentioned in the Vedas and also in Bhagavad Gita that the Vedas and the Vedic rituals are all meant for understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. From the very beginning, one should try to act in Krishna consciousness. That will free one from the reactions of material activities. And this is what we want. Text 6. The Lord of the ritualistic performance of Yagya later married Dakshina, who was anxious to have the personality of Godhead as her husband. And in this wife, the Lord was also very much pleased to beget 12 children.
Then there's also one question.
Yeah.
So Lord Vishnu married Dakshina, right?
Yeah.
Is Dakshina another name of Lakshmi?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it said there that he married Lakshmi, right? So this must be the name in this case for Lakshmi as well. Yeah. And Dakshina, it's the one who gives alms, right? But I don't know exactly the name of Lakshmi, what in this case means. But yeah, Lakshmi has also many names, like Vishnu. Innumerable names. They're like the primary names of Lakshmi, like the one most used and known or revered. There's the stotra of glorifying. There must be the 1,000 names of, like this Vishnu Sahasranam. There's I think it's called Lalita Sahasranam. Yeah, I think it's called Lalita Sahasranam. Yeah. So they must be there, this name. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Purport. An ideal husband and wife are generally called Lakshmi Narayana, to compare them to the Lord and the goddess of fortune, for it is significant that Lakshmi Narayana are forever happy as husband and wife. A wife should always remain satisfied with her husband, and a husband should always remain satisfied with his wife. In a Chanakya Loka, the moral instructions of Chanakya Pandit, it is said that if a husband and wife are always satisfied with one another, then the goddess of fortune automatically comes. In other words, where there is no disagreement between husband and wife, all material opulence is present and good children are born. Generally, according to Vedic civilization, the wife is trained to be satisfied in all conditions, and the husband, according to Vedic instruction, is required to please the wife with sufficient food, ornaments, and clothing. And iPhones. Anything else. Then, if they are satisfied with their mutual dealings, good children are born. In this way, the entire world can become peaceful, but unfortunately, in this age of Kali, there are no ideal husbands and wife. Therefore, unwanted children are produced, and there is no peace and prosperity in the present day world. Yeah, it sounds right. Generally speaking, but it can be within the unit of family. There can be peace and good children, and when we follow according to the prescribed varnashrama system, and how it is to be how it is to have that relationship, how it is to run that relationship on the basis of having a Krishna in the center. Yeah. Text 7. The 12 boys born of Yagya and Dakshina were named Tosha, Pratosha, Santosha, Bhadra, Santi, Idaspati, Idma, Kavi, Vibhu, Svachna, Sudeva, and Rochana. Text 8. During the time of Swayambhuva Manu, these sons all became the demigods, collectively named the Tushitas. Marichi became the head of the 7 rishis, and Yagya became the king of the demigods, Indra. Purport. During the life of Swayambhuva Manu, 6 kinds of living entities were generated from the demigods known as the Tushitas, from the sages headed by Marichi, and from descendants of Yagya, king of the demigods. And all of them expanded their progeny to observe the order of the Lord, to fill the universe with living entities. These 6 kinds of living entities are known as Manus, Devas, Manu Putras, Amshavataras, Sureshwaras, and Rishis. Yagya, being the incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, became the leader of the demigods, Indra. Text 9. Swayambhuva Manu's 2 sons, Priyavrata and Uttanapada, became very powerful kings, and their sons and grandsons spread all over the 3 worlds during that period. Text 10. My dear son, Swayambhuva Manu handed over his very dear daughter Devahuti to Kardama Muni. I have already spoken to you about them, and you have heard about them almost in full. Text 11. Swayambhuva Manu handed over his daughter Prasuti to the son of Brahma named Daksha, who was also one of the progenitors of the living entities. The descendants of Daksha are spread throughout the 3 worlds. Text 12. You have already been informed about the 9 daughters of Kardama Muni who were handed over to 9 different sages. I shall now describe the descendants of those 9 daughters. Please hear from me. Purport. The 3rd canto has already described how Kardama Muni begot 9 daughters in Devahuti, and how all the daughters were later handed over to great sages like Marichi, Atri, and Vashishta. Text 13. Kardama Muni's daughter Kala, who was married to Marichi, gave birth to 2 children, whose names were Kashyapa and Purnima. Their descendants are spread all over the world. 14. My dear Vidura, of the 2 sons, Kashyapa and Purnima, Purnima begot 3 children, namely Viraja, Vishvaga, and Devakulya. Of these 3, Devakulya was the water which washed the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead, and which later on transformed into the Ganges of the heavenly planets. Purport. Of the 2 sons of Kashyapa and Purnima, herein Purnima's descendants are described. An elaborate description of these descendants will be given in the 6th canto. It is also understood herein that Devakulya is the presiding deity of the river Ganges, which comes down from the heavenly planets to this planet and is accepted to be sanctified because it touched the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari. I think we're going to end here for today with verse 15 of the 1st chapter of the 4th canto. And we shall see you or continue next Wednesday. Thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you.